Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. It's your host, Travis and John. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. See, once again, like he just stares at the camera.
Every time.
Doing pretty good, man. We had some fun disc golfing this morning. How'd you like it?
It was good. I haven't played that in 30 years. I think the last time I was 11 or 12. So
Like 3-0?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago, man.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah, I had a blast. The sun was out in sunny San Diego, and it was pretty great, man. I sweated more than I was expecting. It was like one of those things like I was not expecting it to be that physically exerting, and it was no joke. We saw the lady in the cart come by, and I was like, "Do you have any beer?" She's like, "I wish." I was like, I don't think you're supposed to say that, but we have a very special guest today. We have Malachy. How you doing today, man?
Good. How are you guys?
Fantastic. So he has made a big impact. When we ever talk about jiu-jitsu in Japan, this is the man that we refer to. His students are the ones that changed our jiu-jitsu quite a bit, and so we finally got him on and able to talk to the man, the myth himself, about everything that we've learned and whatnot. So, but without going any further, Malachy, you want to go and introduce yourself and tell people who you are and whatnot?
Yeah. My name is Malachy. I'm a Ricardo Liborio Black Belt. I fought MMA for a good long time, and then I got concentrated on the gi after a couple of injuries. I still coach MMA fighters. And then I started releasing instructionals at some point, and they did okay. For a long time, I kept them secret. I didn't, for some reason in my head, I was like, I didn't want to show anybody my stuff. But then at some point, it was just like my students didn't care if I was showing it or this or that. And so I made the HeisenGuard, Darce Killer, Flower Power, a bunch of cool different takes on stuff. And I was able to kind of get a very small following, but also have a really good impact on some of my students who ended up teaching really, really well.
Yeah, we got introduced to two of those students right from the get-go. I think we had been doing jiu-jitsu for 6 months.
No, I think because in Japan, we were closer to a year.
A year? Oh,
yeah.
Were we?
Yeah.
And those were Alan, who we had on earlier, and then Trey also, which most of our instruction was under Trey, who is a purple belt under you, and he like redefined what a purple belt is to me. You know what I mean? Like the amount of knowledge he had and the skill and
just teaching it. He was great at teaching it. We liked the way he taught it. It wasn't
the way he instructed.
Yeah, it was very systematic. We'd learn one piece at a time. It wasn't too much at one time where you'd kind of get lost in all the different technique. So I really enjoyed it.
I'd like to take credit for it. I could take maybe a percentage of it. I teach like it's a seminar. At least I try to. I try to relate the information to every single person. I try to enjoy what I'm doing. I try to, teach to the person in the room that's listening the most. And a lot of times it was Alan and Trey. Those guys were the most dialed in. They were the guys that you instantly know that you're showing the technique and they're absorbing it, or they have questions about the technique and that they may want more from you, and that's always a good thing as a teacher, is that you're not just, I feel bad for school teachers that teach and nobody wants to listen to them.
Yeah.
And that of course happens with jiu-jitsu coaches as well. I don't think people realize that everybody's there to do jiu-jitsu, but everybody it's a capitalist type idea where I tell this to my kids and I tell this to my adults, is that if it wasn't about capitalism, if it wasn't like if I didn't have to worry about paying my bills, I would teach way more in depth and we would drill way more. We wouldn't get 30-minute rolling sessions every time. Like everybody loves rolling, but nobody likes drilling.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it's very true. I remember when we first started, I wanted to so badly just put everything to use right away. You know what I mean? And it was like, all right, he showed me how to do an arm bar. I don't want to drill it. I want to get into live rolls. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that immaturity in the situation to where you're like, I learned it. I know it. I need to apply it, instead of like a king of the hill or like positional. Like now that I've done jiu-jitsu a little bit longer, positional sparring is great. You know what I mean?
it's by far the most underutilized thing by coaches.
Yeah.
It's the in betweens. So like with my kids' classes, they're easier to teach. So like we'll go under like one person will already have a knee slice pass already going, and then we'll go live from that position. Or we'll go from like an arm bar where they already have the arm bar in. They have the arm tied up, and it's like, man, these are these small micro positions that you guys are. It's either we're either going to get our back taken or we're going to come up on top. And a lot of times those aren't taught, and you watch them do a technique, and then they're like, for a second, they look like a dead bug on their back. And the other person's back on top of them. And you're like, man, if they were winning that. They had the exact technique that they needed. All they had to do was scissor the legs and come up. And they were just 1 second off, one wrong decision off. And a lot of those micro positional sparring stuff is what changes your jiu-jitsu. It's where you have success and where other people don't have success. It's just that one choice or that one intuitive movement throughout the technique.
Yeah, and you were talking about earlier your instructional on the Darce Killer, and I'm pretty sure you came out with it right after Darren Till got darced by Tyrone Woodley, and he showed no defense for it.
So that came out a year or 2 years before Darren Till.
Oh, really?
I just commented on how crappy it was that I feel like I have the best Darce defense out there. I studied it. I trained it. I put it to the test against guys that were just killers. I had Keenan Cornelius come down. I had him darce me. I had Tanner Rice. I had these guys. I had Gleison Tebow, just mammoth of human beings and just ultra skilled. I remember Keenan told me, I'm not really good at the Darce. And I'm like, you're really good at jiu-jitsu. It's like, I'm not really good at a lot of things in jiu-jitsu. It's but I'm a black belt in most things. If I get somebody locked in with a fully rear naked choke, rear naked choke is okay. That's my thing. Let me think of something that's a little bit more, a little bit more nuanced. A monoplata. Monoplata, I'm good at, but it's like it's a niche position. But if you put me on Keenan Cornelius with a monoplata, I have a better chance of finishing him than if I was anywhere else. It's like, so definitely when you start talking about, I got put in, not just the beginning of it, fully locked in, already choking, figure it out. And it's just one of those things that we should all know how to stop a rear naked choke, how to stop a Kimura, how to stop, especially at the skill level that you're competing at, where you're making over $30,000. So if you're making over $30,000, you should look at all the techniques that are going on in the UFC, of all the things you can get submitted by, and go, okay, I need to reinvest in this defense, because if this happens, I don't have an answer for it. I just won't get there. That's the obvious answer. Don't get there to begin with. But what happens when you're getting beat up and you got to put your hand in front of you, and that's where the Darce comes from. It's like they're on side control, they're posting their hands, and somebody slips it in. You go against, Charles Oliveira, I guarantee you, man, you're going to get anaconda or guillotined. It's like, well, how does that guy always find his way there? Because he forces people to come up in bad situations. And it's not just that you're unlucky. He creates those situations, and he's good at finishing them.
Yeah, when the first time I got darced was one of our great buddies, Cody Smith, and I told the story last time, but it's a great story because it 100% plays into that, to where Cody would be in mount and he would pass a leg over the head and he would wait for you to push the leg off like you were going to roll, and as he did that, he fed underneath into the Darce, and he worked every single time on me. I was like, man, I really need to pay more attention to that, because he just keeps getting me over and over again.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten darced ever since I went to that Darce seminar with the Gracie brothers in Seattle. And after that, I might not be that good at them, but I know when someone's trying to put it on me. So that really helped.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the things, right? Is especially when you get more advanced in jiu-jitsu, it's not always applying it, but knowing when it's being applied also, right? I can't always break a perfect arm bar, but I can feel when someone's starting to transition into an arm bar a little bit more now.
Yeah, I would say that. So when you start getting into the higher, like, so when you start going over technique recognition, that's one thing, and then you start to get into where you don't have where you're stacking things against another opponent, like where you have an angle and he doesn't have an angle, where you have freedom of movement and where you don't have freedom of movement. There's so many things that happen before the technique itself is applied that, like, when it starts going down the rabbit, when you start going down the rabbit hole of jiu-jitsu, it starts going like, I want to be on my side. If I'm in half guard, I want to be on my side. I want to be on my shoulder. I want to have both hands free. I want to have a knee shield. And then if he starts taking things apart, like he starts getting past my knee shield, that would be stupid of me to not address that right away. So it's almost like I always want things stacked in my favor. So if I can get something stacked in my favor where, like, I have 4 things out of 7 that I need, and he has 2 out of 7. So you always try to make sure that you're on uneven playing fields. And that's really where MMA and where some of the lower belts are losing, is because you see like 80 submissions, or like, let's I mean, I don't like to shit on people, but let's talk about Tim Elliott. I think Tim Elliott's a great martial artist and a great jiu-jitsu guy. This will bring you guys hits, so you can always say like black belt trashes Tim Elliott's jiu-jitsu. No, I think that he moves through the submissions too fast. He chains them too fast, and I know this because I was a lot like him. Like I could always beat really good guys in the scramble. Like, so as long as we're scrambling, I have submission attempts. Like I would finish some really well-known guys, and I'm, it was kind of high on my horse about it. And then there were guys that would go super slow, like a guy like Marcus Aurelio. He's the first guy that submitted Takanori Gomi when Gomi was like the man. And he would slowly pass your guard, and then you'd have to get your guard back, and then you'd slowly pass your guard again, and then he'd stay there for a little bit longer, and slowly you realize, like, man, I'm losing constantly. Like, I'm getting fatigued, I'm getting tired. This guy keeps passing my guard. Now he's going to mount. I have to get him out of mount. Like, he may not finish you, but he dominates you until there's something that you have to give up. And if it's MMA, you're going to give your back if he's on mount elbowing you, or he's punching you. So it's like, you can't say like, oh, because he didn't submit me, he wouldn't submit me in an MMA fight. No, we're talking about punches, so I don't want to eat 1,000 punches to my face. So maybe I'll give him something to try to get out. But that's where a lot of guys, like, when you watch guys transitionally sparring in like one submission, another submission, this guy's like Anthony Pettis, or you see a lot of these fights where guys are like almost submitting each other on each transition, and that shouldn't happen as much as it does, especially at an elite level, where you should wait. Like, it's not always your dance, like you're not doing a solo dance, you're doing a dance with somebody else. And so if you don't let that person twirl to the full twirl, then you're not gonna be able to counter it correctly, because everything's becoming janky and cut off. And I think that's where a lot of guys, at least in my evolution of jiu-jitsu for myself, it was figuring out, like, I go and then I wait for his response. I go and then I'm always counter punching my opponent's response to what they're going to do. And I make sure that if I have 3 out of 7, I make sure out of the next one I have 4 out of 7 things I need. And maybe I only need 5 out of 7 things to finish the submission. It'd be great if I had 7 out of 7. That's a guarantee. But if I'm 5 out of 7, it's good enough to possibly get the finish that I needed.
Did you start jiu-jitsu in 2006 or was it earlier?
I started jiu-jitsu in 2001, and all the Brazilians will say that I didn't do jiu-jitsu. So I did. I remember when I went to Top Team, the guys were telling me, like, "Oh, you don't do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like, that's not Brazilian jiu-jitsu." It's like, in my mind it was, but I guess the gi being worried about points, being worried about position, all of that stuff was not really there. I was probably in that same element of like, I'm rolling until I get a submission. If I get a submission, I won. It's like, and if not, if I came closer to submissions than the other person, I won. I was never looking at points. I was never looking at dominant control. I was never looking at things where like I had fights where I was on the back and I went for an armbar from the back like an idiot, like thinking that was such a bad idea. But there's matches where all I was hunting was like submission, just submissions. And I would say 2001 till 2009 ish, or maybe 2009 or 2010. I injured my neck around that time, and I ended up not being able to have my head pulled down, so I couldn't I lost my arm. There's a whole bunch of crap that happened, but I lost strength. I had nerve damage. I had a really bad neck, and I couldn't have somebody pulling on my head to break my posture. And so I went to the gi, funny enough, and I ended up fixing all my jiu-jitsu crap that I had problems with.
That's interesting. So I guess I'll ask you a question. I've battled this myself. When we were getting ready for tournaments at our school, a lot of it was point-based. The drilling we would do was point-based, and I had a real hard time with that. For me, I was like, well, I'm just going to try to submit. Like, I just want to submit. And some of the difficulties I had was even when we were practicing, if I was in a dominant position and I was like taking my time and I was going really slow, then I was getting coached to move faster. And to me, I felt like that was a detriment for my game because I just want to be slow. I don't want to be fast. And honestly, for myself, when I went and competed, for every match, I just tried to submit. I tried to submit. And like the first match, I actually won on points. I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to submit. The second match, I ended up losing, and that's when I learned a valuable lesson. Like, I'm never pulling guard again when I'm in a heavier weight class. And the third match, I ended up winning on a submission. But it was interesting. I think my mindset, I don't know how you coach your people when they're going into competitions, but do you coach more towards the point aspect or try to get the submission?
So when we're talking about points, I'm not talking about like piggy banking points, like barrel bowling 6 times and then coming up for the advantage and then dropping back down. Like that's all gamemanship. I think when you look at what jiu-jitsu is, so we got to look at, okay, what jiu-jitsu is. Jiu-jitsu is dominating your opponent, right? So, and I would agree, submissions are fun. I really like sweeps. I really like guard passing because I know that's the workman's job. Like if you're a guard passer, you're a blue collar dude. Like you are the salt of the earth. You don't mind getting bloody. You don't mind getting fingers in your face. You don't mind all that crap. You're just relentless guard. If you're a guard passer, you're a monster. But so let's say I get the takedown. I deserve 2 points for that, right? If you pull guard, you take that away from me. That's okay. I'm on top. I can choose to double guard pull. Now that's up to me. If I double guard pull, then come up for the advantage. That's just good. That's just good sport. At least being on top of the things. But if I pass your guard, I'm now either I'm up 5 for the takedown or I'm up 3 for the pass and 1 advantage. This puts the ball in your court, right? So I go, okay, I'm on side control. If I go to knee on belly, I get 2 more points. You better start moving. If you're not moving, then I'm going to win. I'm going to win on points, and that's the guarantee. And if my opponent chooses for me to win on points, basically what they're saying is that I dominated them, and they were unable to do anything with it. Now they have all of the cards in their hands to go, okay, I'm going to try to get out of this. And getting out of this is going to put me at risk. And if this was MMA or if this was in the street and I'm on top of you, I don't pass guard in MMA, really. That's another whole subject of just you want to be on top in MMA. That's always, you want gravity on your side. And you want free range. That's another thing people don't understand. It's like, when you're on top, you have free range of movement from down to up. And when you can drop elbows and drop punches on people, it's completely different. You always want to be on top. But in the concept of that, if you're willing to lose by 3 points or 5 points or 7 points, that was your decision, right? My decision is I don't want to lose by 7 points, so I'm going to turn, give my back. If you decide to lose by 7 points or you decide to lose by 4 points, then that's your choice. I decide to go turtle. I decide to go turtle and try to get my underhook and try to get my takedown and try to get to work because I'm down points. Now, if you start to stall, that just means I have to work 10 times harder. Like, yeah, I shouldn't have that's why I like these positions, because guard passing should be hard. Sweeping somebody should be hard. Nobody should be able to be like, oh, I fell down and now I'll play guard here. And now I'm over here. And now he passed my guard. If you start to make points matter, then nobody's going to pass your guard like they shouldn't. You will work your ass off for them not to pass your guard. And if they do pass your guard, you're going to work your ass off to get those points back or get back into a better position, or or get your guard back and try to submit, because that's all the chance you have. So in the same area of where you got Eddie Bravo's, submission only. I mean, how many times are these guys going the entire route of not being submitted, and then from there they go into overtime, and there's a DVD instructional of how to win in overtime. Of like, one guy holds on, and if he holds on for 10 minutes, great. And then the other guy holds on, and then one gets submitted with 6 minutes, and that guy has to get submitted within 5 minutes. You're getting into the same double-edged sword of how can I use the rules to my advantage? How can I make this work for me? And how can I game plan this? I think the most pure, simplest way is that you should never want to give a dominant position, right? So I understand like guard pulling, and I understand, and that's where I'm okay with the advantage to going to the guy who stands up, because that guy's choosing a standing pass, which could be harder or can be more laborious in the beginning of a match. But in reality, you should not give side control. If you're in a street fight, somebody should not pass your guard. Number one, you should be able to get the takedown. If you get the takedown, pass the guard, go to mount, all these things, you're dominating your opponent in the streets. So it goes the same route of like, no, like submission only means you're giving up a ton of opportunities for things that are casually there. Like you're just making stuff up. You're like, well, if I give him this and I go there, that's fun. Maybe like that's what ADCC is for. But you watch ADCC and nobody's doing anything until the points matter. Like it goes 10 minutes with nobody doing anything, just trying to fatigue each other on the feet, like palming each other's heads. And then when points matter, they pull guard. Right? So they pull with 9 minutes and 50 seconds, they'll sit on their butt. If they're the guard player, and we know that already. So it's very hard. It's very difficult to say submission only against points only. I think with points, it makes people have to work. The same thing where people can stall, but you made the mistake in letting that guy pass your guard. You should get a better guard, or you should get better at a few lucky things, like maybe inverting and coming back on top. Or there's a whole different, there's a whole lot of discussion we could talk about that. But I'm for the points. I teach points end up in submissions if you do it right.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I can see that, because then they're going to be scrambling, trying to make them up, and you'll have those opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because I mean, it was kind of explained to us in that depth, but and then we were taught also to like hold for 3 seconds to get those points and whatnot. And at first we were kind of against the holding for 3 seconds. And then I realized how long 3 seconds actually is, right? And in a street fight, 3 seconds is someone's entire fight. You know what I mean? Like if you hold someone there for 3 seconds and they're just like trying to squirm and get away from you, they exhaust a lot of energy in 3 seconds. So actually in transitioning into a street fight, it actually makes a lot of sense too. And once that was brought up to us, I was like,
yeah,
I kind of feel like a jerk now, So what made you want to like get into MMA and everything like that? Get punched in the face for fun?
So I really liked. So there was, like when I was a kid, I really liked the tough kids. I was like, oh, they're cool. Like I want to be like that. And it kind of took me down the route of like going to parties, getting in fights, going to parties, getting in fights, going to parties, getting in fights. And there became like a certain point in my life where I was I was like 19 years old, and I was getting in trouble a lot. I was, like a lot of my, like, it's sad now to say it, but like all my good friends are still currently alive, but all of my associated friends that like I associated with or are close with some of my other friends, they've passed away for the most part due to heroin addiction or suicide or I mean, it's coming from like a party like atmosphere and stuff like that. And I just loved beating people up. I just loved it. Like I didn't care. I love getting beat up. I love beating people up. I love the adrenaline. I love the talking about it afterwards. I loved everything about a good street fight, and like, oh, this guy, and he came over here. I saw you hit him. It's like I just like drunken random fights, and I'm like, and then I watched then one of my buddies, we used to fight in the front yard. We used to have like they were supposed to be wrestling matches, but we basically beat the crap out of each other. And so like we would beat each other up. And one of my buddies was a jiu-jitsu guy, and he choked me every single moment of my life, just kept choking me and finishing me. And he was a high school wrestler, state level. I don't think he won, but I think he went to state. And he was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and he just destroyed me, like top and bottom. And then there's like, I remember living in the house I was in, like having like scars all over my, like I had like t-shirts tied around my rug burn on my knees, on my elbows, and I was just getting submitted left and right. And it came to a point where I was like, I'm partying so much that I'm going to get that at some point it's going to really affect my life. It already had. And then I just decided to move, and with almost no money at all, and move to the opposite side of the country and try to fight. And that's, just basically off of like sheer, I don't know, immaturity. I guess if you thought like I could be in the UFC, I can walk into Team Quest and be a UFC fighter. It's like, like that kind of ignorance of a 21-year-old being of the egotistical 21-year-old.
Invincible.
I wasn't even 20. Yeah. I wasn't even 21. I became 21 in Oregon. But that was the thing. I wanted to fight. I loved it. And I wanted it, and I wanted it more than I wanted partying. I think at some point it became like, I'm going to do this. And I went out there and I did it, and it was worth it. It's where I am now in life. And had I not had this obsession with being a badass, or this obsession with being a fighter, or this obsession with like, all this cut in school and not going and all this other stuff, had I not done that, maybe I wouldn't be here now. Maybe I'd be doing something completely different. But my mom just said, I just prayed. My mom was like, it's like, she's like, that's all I could do is just pray that you would grow up, because I knew you'd be smart enough to get out of it later. It's like, I just was worried about you, that you're going to get killed before that. And so now I'm here, and I'm able to affect young kids' lives now, and kind of show them that, like, hey, we're super tough over here. We're like, all the guys you think are tough, they're not. We're the educated, tough people, and here's the outlet to do this in. Here's the available, beat your chest type thing. Like, this is if this is what you want, if you want to be a badass, you could be here, but you can't drink, and you can't do drugs, and you can't get into fights in the street, because we're not going to allow that. Like, if you're a 16-year-old kid and you're drinking and getting arrested, I'm sorry, that's not the image we want for our academy. So I think that having that in the place where I grew up now is is really important to me now, to have like, to be able, so other people are able to possibly have another chance, because a lot of people don't get to go to Oregon. A lot of people don't do what I did, and they don't have the stories that I have to that like a life-saving event, which I could say this is pretty much life-saving. I was an insane person, like it doesn't get any realer than what I was doing, when I was at my worst. So thank God, like it's one of those things where I thought my ignorance thought I could be an MMA fighter, and it allowed me to travel and try it and do it.
You don't regret it at all, right? Because like you said, it's that action, that irresponsibility, I guess you could say, right? Of like, I could do this. I watch it on TV all the time, but it paved the way for, like, you've experienced things, right? Like you're thankful for it. Like you look back, like, I don't regret it because I am where I am today, but it was for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had that with on the Forever White Belt podcast. I brought up, like, I wouldn't go backwards because I don't know if it would have changed how I am now. Like there's a thousand things. I guess that means you're satisfied with life to a degree. At least I'm satisfied with what my current knowledge of the sport is that I don't want to change anything, because I can only figure that I'd be worse.
Right.
Like, because each experience, like, I would have never done the gi if I didn't have a neck injury. I would have never done it. I probably would have got a couple good MMA fights, and I probably would have. I'm sure I was UFC. I think I was, I was UFC potential. They were talking about that when I was there, getting me in the Ultimate Fighter house. And then the neck injury happened, and kind of everything went south. But people don't realize, like, when the neck injury happened, I drove a kid's after school van for a top team. Like I don't know how much more humbling you can have than being from being the guy that everybody wanted to kind of have a little bit of a touch on, and the coaches were giving me attention, and then and the higher fighters are giving me attention because they want me in their camps, and then getting a neck brace and not really talking to anybody ever again. Not everybody, but talking to your team members are kind of separated from you because you're no longer an asset, and then you're driving around this kid's school bus. So but it made me like dogged. Like, I don't think a lot of people really realize, they quit when they're ahead. There's been plenty of guys that I thought had all the potential in the world, and they just squandered it because something came up, something happened to them, something financially, something. It's always, it's these guys that that they have all this potential, and they have everything, and instead they decide that like, it's too hard, and they're gonna go somewhere else, or they're gonna go do something else, and they're gonna retire. I'm still wondering what I'm gonna do next. So it's like one of those things where, especially with the pandemic, I don't know what's next. Are you guys in California?
Yeah, we're in California. We're in San Diego right now, but we're originally from Washington. We're down here for work.
Yeah, Washington. That's a nice place, man. I went to Wenatchee.
Wenatchee, yeah.
Wenatchee's a beautiful
Wenatchee's
area.
nice.
I had a couple of fights out there. I fought some I think natives, some natives, in some cage fights out there. Because I think they drove the bus by the jail, and they offered the guys $600 in a room to stay in, and you didn't know who you were fighting, because they were just picking dudes up from out of the jail.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty crazy.
Wenatchee's a weird place.
Yeah.
I fought, Missoula and stuff like that out in those areas. But yeah, it's like, you guys are in California. Are you guys training right now?
No, I haven't been training. I haven't trained since like July. My wife's pregnant. She's due October 15th. And so I'm trying to thank you. So I'm trying not to get the COVID as much as possible. She's back up in Washington, but I haven't really trained down here because we're just so busy all the time. But John, you trained a little bit, right?
Yeah, I've been going to this Krav Maga place up the street. That's like the only thing open out here, but it's mostly been just boxing and some stand-up that I've been working on. But I talked to Alan yesterday. I think I'm going to go to the Chula Vista Jiu-Jitsu Club. And it's been a couple months. Yeah.
Is that people are like, who knows with the pandemic, who knows who's going to, that's the interesting part is going to be who comes. I think people that come out of the pandemic aren't necessarily always the brightest stars, but they're the ones that are going to work the hardest. It's like there's probably 20 to 30 guys per city that are going to quit jiu-jitsu because of the pandemic. And any one of those guys could have been a black belt, and any one of those black belts could have won a championship or have contributed in a huge way. And they have nothing but the pandemic to blame. And that's what a silly thing to blame. That's the problem, is that a lot of people, they I don't know if it's the generational thing. I don't know if it's, just how maybe they don't have the passion for it, but man, I live I'm tremendous at suffering. You know what I mean? Like that's it. I'm just really good. Like nobody can suffer as much as me. And so it's like, if everybody's suffering the same, now y'all are in trouble, because if everybody's suffering, if everybody's going through the same crap, and everybody's like, now everybody's doing more poorly in their financial or training or this or that, it's going to be the guys that are really dogs in the fight that are going to come out on top of it. Maybe we'll get a world champion out of that. Maybe we'll get an amazing coach out of that. Like guys are popping up all over the scene. And I'm sure we would have seen some new names at the world championships this year. It's some standouts. You always get the brown or the purples. And maybe this will create a ripple effect for years, because we can't have people flying in from Brazil, or like, I don't know if they're taking care of the COVID over there. I haven't heard much. I don't read too much of the news, but I mean, it's all possible that, like now is the time to, if anybody's listening, now is the time to get better and study.
Yes.
Like, your jiu-jitsu is not all about what you can do with your body. It's about inventory. It's about visualization. It's about figuring things out. It's about thinking. It's about learning. It's about, man, even just reading a book is making your jiu-jitsu better, because you gotta make yourself, mentally fit to be ready, and I think that if the guys that are going to do really well are the guys that are using this time right now that everybody else is using to get fat, or using to say like, oh, well, I think this is the time where people are they're gonna turn it up, man. Like, they know that this was going to be their year, and they can now blame the pandemic for it not being their year.
Yep.
But their year to grow, because if they're on it, man, I know a couple names that are out there that I believe are going to be in the championships soon, and those guys are working hard. They're not stopping.
It's funny you say that. I was getting motivated after our last podcast, so I went out today and I was like, all right, let me get a notebook and a pen. It's time to start studying up again. It's like I need that motivation. It's hard to stay motivated though with all the schools closed. Yeah, like it's tough. The motivation's tough on that side of it.
Yeah, when I'm back home, I still train, but here I haven't trained, because there's like we work like 10, 12 hours a day, and so I'm like, oh man, I just really don't have a bunch of time right now. But when I get back home, I'm super pumped to get back on the mats with all my buddies and whatnot. But
yeah, I mean, you definitely have different reasons. I mean, when you talk about the military guys, you talk to different people. There are valid reasons for not doing certain things. Like, I've had people talk to me and they've told me like, well, like I'm worried about giving my wife COVID, or I'm worried about giving us like I haven't seen my mom and my dad since February without seeing them through a glass door, right? It's because my parents are in their 70s. They're very worried about this. They're taking it as serious as possible. And then I get somebody who wants to talk about, well, I'm concerned about. It's like, man, then stop coming to jiu-jitsu. It's like that's like you are taking a gigantic risk coming in here, training with somebody, and then if something happens where somebody in the gym or something else gets COVID, it's like, well, welcome to the entire world. Everybody's getting COVID from everywhere else of these interactions, but you are on top of that place where bacteria and disease spread anyways are now worried about COVID only when there's an outbreak or there's something here. Man, like get tested or stay home, or I get it. It's not what you want to do. You want everybody wants the freedom to be like, well, I choose jiu-jitsu until COVID chooses you. And then you're like, you can't blame anybody but yourself. And if you have somebody that's at home who's pregnant, then I think you're taking the proper precautions for what's important in your life. And if the military says you cannot go because that's important to them, that you don't spread the COVID to your officers or your peers, then that's important. Like we all have different. I got to run the gym because that's how I feed my family. It's like if I got COVID, I don't want COVID. I don't want that crap, and I don't want my wife to get it, and I don't want my daughter to get it, and I don't want my mother or father to get it. But it's if I don't, that's my job. Like my job is there other people's hobbies. So it's
How has it affected this whole lockdown, like nationwide lockdown and everything? How has it affected you in your business and whatnot?
I think, I've lost a good bit of business, but I'm doing better than a lot of other people. I continually go to work. I think that's what a lot of other people don't, they give easy reasons for not going in, or they give a reason for why their gym is closed, or, like I've shut my gym down once. We had one athlete had a COVID issue, and we shut the gym down for a week, just because for visuals. Because the honest to God truth is like, I'm sure somebody will complain about this, but literally you can get COVID the next day you return. Like there could be somebody there who's asymptomatic, and they can go into the gym and give you COVID the day after I closed it. So the week really doesn't matter. Like none of that matters. It's for visuals, and it's for everybody else to say like, okay, Malachy's doing a good job in keeping the gym clean. But in reality, like there's no real way of stopping what's going on out there other than precaution, getting it, or having enough immune system response to not have a serious issue from it when you do get it. Because I think at some point we'll all have some form of COVID. Hopefully it's going to be a dumbed down version of something that we've been able to harness, and like the flu. Like nobody's worried about getting the flu. Nobody wants it, but there's a reason why people get flu shots, because old people pass away all the time from the flu.
Yep.
So they don't want to get it. It's like the flu is not good. Like I think people don't remember that. Maybe it was the 1913s or 1915s, something like that, where the influenza or Spanish flu or
Spanish flu,
whatever. Yeah, I mean, and that killed a ton of people. Let me close that door.
Yeah, that Spanish flu is an interesting thing, because people were always complaining about the wearing the masks, and then you look at these pictures from the early 1900s, and back then it was a law to wear a mask because of the Spanish flu, so.
Yeah, I remember my mom told me like, hey, your gym might take a hit because there's a virus that's probably coming over here that's going to hit. This was like in November or December. I was like, Mom, listen, we're in America. This stuff doesn't happen in America.
Right.
We're not a third world country we're not going to, like, nothing's going to shut down. And then, like, March, boosh, the lights go out, everything's shut down, everybody's losing their mind. I'm like, God dang, man. Like, that's my pure ignorance of me living an entitled life in America is going like, nothing doesn't happen to us. You know, like a war on American soil? No. You know, like, so,
I think it was a big eye opener for everyone, and it was probably the funniest thing that was an eye opener for me is how many people don't take personal hygiene serious until a pandemic happens. You know what I mean? I was like, they're like, man, you gotta wash your hands. I was like, you don't wash your hands already? Like, you gotta bathe every day. I was like, you don't bathe every day already? Like, what are you talking about?
Listen, I'm not the best at personal hygiene. I wash my hands most often. But on top of that, it's like, man, like I'm not sure how you guys can see me.
The great beard.
I'm going to do my best to clean. I have a wedding in a week, so I'll do my best to like keep it a little bit shorter. But man, like I feel like I'm in the wrong century. You know, like a lot of times, like there's different centuries that you look at and you go like, man, yeah, that would have been better for me. Like
all the time.
Like, yeah, it's like, man, maybe I would have, you know, like, I'm not sure because I do like comfort, you know, but cowboys, Indians, Vikings type stuff, I'd be dead way before 30, but I would have definitely had fun.
Yeah, especially with a beard like that, right? The Vikings would have just like, yeah, come on, you're one of us.
Yeah, you're one.
Yeah, man. Like my wife will get mad at it if I don't add this. I'm also terrible at traveling, and I don't like being in boats. So there's that.
You're talking to the Navy guys. We're a Navy, so
yeah. So, but you guys, have you seen the boats they sat in for how many weeks?
Oh yeah.
Like sitting upright. I don't know how they even fought out of that. I don't even know like how you get up and you're like if I'm in a road trip, I'm like, I feel like I just died. If I gotta, you know, like they're gonna go to like another warring country and take over their territory after sitting upright in a wooden boat with like 20 or 30 other people. That's awful.
Did you ever watch the show The Vikings?
I have. I did not watch the last season. It kind of fell apart for me. But I definitely have to kind of catch back up. I liked all the Ragnar stuff. Not Ragnar, the Ivar, the boneless.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he was like, he's in Russia or something now. I haven't seen it since.
I haven't watched it, but I hear it's actually really good because ever since the Game of Thrones ended, I'm like, I need my fix.
It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you like seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 are like, it's a killer season. It's really, really good. If you haven't watched it, that's like not watching Breaking Bad. Have you not watched Breaking Bad?
Long time ago.
Good God, listen. So there's things.
I watched the first season. It didn't ever grabbed me. I was like, oh, this is all right.
Good God, man, there's something climactic every time.
I like real life stuff like Lord of the Rings, you know.
Yeah.
Something about our past.
Yeah. The history.
Yeah.
History of where we came from. No, I mean, there's two things I enjoyed: jiu-jitsu, MMA, and TV. I really like TV. I don't know. I know that sounds terrible because everybody's like, "Oh, you should like books." Like, no, man. If I wasn't doing this, I'd hopefully be writing for a TV show or something like that. You know, because I just like when the way things work. You know, like it's almost like an art form. You know, like when you see the things shift in place, you're like, yeah, that was nicely done. So the same thing with jiu-jitsu. It's like if I see nice jiu-jitsu nicely done, I'm like, that was good. It was a good setup, good finish. You know, like I would really enjoy that. Same thing with TV for me.
So what do you do as in your pastime then besides jiu-jitsu
and TV?
You make besides jiu-jitsu TV? I see you put a lot of content out on like the gram and all that stuff. And do you spend a lot of time just editing and then or do you do other things?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that most of my day revolves around the business. We're still a small business. We're trying to open up and become a larger facility through the pandemic and through because we got a new property, we got all this stuff, and then the pandemic hit, and like nobody wants to give out any bank loans because nobody knows what's in the foreseeable future, especially not for something that is like, hey, you have to be in 6 feet of contact with somebody for this. But so I do a little bit of editing. I kind of I cheat a little bit on my editing. So I shoot all my classes. I put them on my subscription site. And then I take whatever I think is good and I cut it like super fast. And I'll just like, and then, so yeah, maybe about 25 minutes of editing a day. And that's a lot, but like just like everybody else, like I don't have the person to pay yet, you know, like so I don't have Bernardo Faria editing my stuff yet. But if I want what I want in my life, I know that right now I got to suck it up and do it, you know. And so I think a lot of people think like, oh, you know, like you probably just jiu-jitsu and go home and have a nice life. It's like, yeah, I sit there. I have Judge Judy playing in the background. I got, yeah, Judge Judy's. Yeah, that's what's up, man.
You telling me, look, I'm so sad. I come home from work and normally I got 2 hours of Judge Judy. And now they redone the TV and I ain't got no Judge Judy. I'm like, what is going on? That lady is awesome.
Dude, Judge Judy's my she's my Mother Teresa.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, she's
must be an older generation thing.
Dude, it's one of those
maybe
things.
It is.
She reminds me of my grandma. Like my grandma was so mean. On my dad's side, I can't. So everybody's listening. My dad's side, my grandma was so mean. She was so mean. She was such a mean person. So, like, she was like, she already knew what you were like. She was like, I know what you're thinking. Like I was a big kid.
I don't even know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But no, I love seeing people that are idiots get their due process. You know, them getting really just chewed out and them. She's like, you know, you look stupid, right? You know, like,
yeah,
I love her. It's also something that I can work to. So like, she's going on, and I can do all my work that I need to do, and doesn't take my attention away where I'm not like having to follow a story. But
so speaking of age, I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. I've never got to pick a brain on this, but I'm curious when you're teaching a class or you got new people that come in or new to jiu-jitsu. Is it any different for, I don't know how it is in your classes or your school, but when we have our classes, I think there's 3 of us that are over 40, right? Generally, everyone else is like, 18 and up.
Yeah.
Like, they're, you know, I think very few, maybe 1 or 2 are 30. The rest are all maybe in their 20s. I've always had a tough time with even like warm-ups or some of the drilling and all that. Do you take into account someone that's in their 40s? Like, you know, with whatever injuries they're dealing with versus someone that's 20?
I mean, I think warm-ups are stupid. I don't do warm-ups. I don't run. We don't do forward rolls. We don't do backward rolls. We don't hip escape down the mats. We don't do push-ups like insane people. I think that's fluff. That's for instructors that want to get rid of 15 minutes and then want to teach 15 minutes and then want to roll 30 minutes. I think there's better ways of drilling, which means, hey, pick a sweep so if it's basic class, pick a basic pass and drill that. You got 5 minutes each person. And I don't understand how, like, yeah, if you're getting ready for the Pan Ams, or if you're like, I mean, not Pam's, let's say you're a tennis champion, like, yeah, I could understand running is important, but running without purpose, like, so she's never going to, like, so Venus or Serena Williams is never going to run a marathon in the time that but she's going to sprint at least 2 miles. So she's going to sprint 2 miles at least in that time period of going back and forth. Why would she do something that's obviously not suited for the sport itself? Why would she do something that she's not going to get better at? Why would they work on, like, sprints are important for athletes that need to sprint. Drills are important for people that need to get hip flexibility, to start turning their muscle, activating their muscles the right way, to start getting kind of that calloused, for older people, there's like, you hurt like hell until you're knee slicing a couple times, and then you start to warm up. Like, warming up that way makes a lot more sense to me than warming up in a some kind of like guerrilla training unit where, like, I don't care if you can run or you can do hip escapes. Like, I'm focused on, can you do the knee slide pass, and does it get better as you're going through it, and are you getting warmed up as you're doing it? And that's, for me, I cut out the whole drilling, because I'm really focused on having at least a good 25 minutes worth of teaching time where I can show a technique, pull it back in, show a new technique, correct something that's going on, or answer some questions, and then go into the rolling, 20 minutes to 30 minutes of rolling. But I don't have enough time for us to screw around and run around in circles.
You know, one thing we did in Japan, and me and Travis really enjoyed it, is when we wanted to warm up, we just got to class early. We warmed up on our own, however we wanted to do, which was normally some type of drilling.
Yep.
And then class would start. We were warm. We liked it. We didn't waste any time, and it was straight into technique. And I really enjoyed that portion of it.
Yeah, and it was also, we would come to class, and some days it'd be like, there's no technique today. It's King of the Hill. And you're like, oh, no. You know, and it's an hour of King of the Hill. But it was grueling. I mean, by the end of it, you're like, you're using nothing but technique, or you're just trying your hardest to survive, right? And so it was a lot of fun. And I definitely saw a benefit in doing something like that, like once every couple weeks or once every other week or something like that. That was a huge thing that I really enjoyed. It was like, they'd come in, no technique, get ready to roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's important to maximize time, because we only get so much of it. We only get so much free time. We only get so much time to get better. And if I feel like, I'd never try to give away a class. That's the biggest thing, is I'm never trying to throw something away. I always want, if I'm on the mats, I want it. I'm giving my time. I'm giving my personal time. So I want to make sure that people are either getting better at jiu-jitsu or getting closer to getting better at jiu-jitsu. And I think that's a big misconception with a whole bunch of instructors or something else, where they're thinking, I teach an hour of class, you're either going to get better or not. And it's like, if I don't think of ways to make you better, if I'm not doing that, if I'm not testing out new stuff, and I'm not coming in with a plan. Sometimes I don't come in with a plan. That's wrong of me to say. Sometimes I come in with like I'm thinking of like 30 things that I want to do, and I'm watching people, or like I'll have them train live. So we'll go, okay, guys, 2 minutes. So like that means that 4 people are in the middle for 2 minutes, and they keep going in 2 minutes, and they don't realize how exhausting that is, because they think like, oh, they're not going, but all of a sudden they're going like 6 times. It's a ridiculous pace. And then I get to watch what actually is happening, and I get to develop my class right there with the people that are there, with the mistakes that are being made right then and there. And I really enjoy doing stuff like that. And sometimes people get cold, and that's the end of class. Like, yeah, they train before the technique, because I'm not trying to get anybody to roll cold. But I'm trying to think of the best ways possible to create a good environment of improvement. I think that's where a lot of people miss, that they think, if I just keep coming, I'll get better. And that's true, but not as fast as everybody else if you do it with a game plan.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's a place for getting warm, like you said, right? But I think the practical getting warm of using jiu-jitsu to warm up for jiu-jitsu, instead of using exercises that, like, John has a bum shoulder, and so when we do push-ups, John doesn't really benefit from the push-ups because he can't do a full push-up because of his shoulder. You know what I mean? So it doesn't translate directly over into his jiu-jitsu game, because in his jiu-jitsu game, he just doesn't use that arm. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, 100%. And had so I have 3 spine surgeries, and had I been forced to do a whole bunch of stuff that was ridiculous, I kind of got the good graces because I got into the gi and I was good. My second day I got my blue belt, and so I was kind of like pushed forward into the get this guy move this guy through, and they knew me as a teammate. So a lot of the black belts that taught the classes when I was part of it were my teammates. And so they kind of of course, I don't have to be a part of all these warm-ups because my body is absolute crap. My body right now, physically, my body can only do a couple things. One of them is jiu-jitsu. The other one is push-ups and sitting and driving a car. Everything else is just the end of the world. If I got to do dishes, I'm preparing. I'm all right, you're gonna be looking down. You're gonna be looking down for about 30 minutes. So you got to make sure you keep looking up and stretching your neck. And so there's this I've been doing jiu-jitsu longer than I've been doing anything else, I think, in my life. Yeah, that's kind of weird. And so 19 years. I can't think of anything I've been doing repetitively other than showing technique or drilling or showing something or rolling, which hasn't really been a part of my daily life since my last back surgery. But every time I show a technique, they don't know it. They probably wonder why I do it 10 times because I'm secretly doing the move for myself, So
well, that's interesting because now I'm almost at the point now where I'm man, I need to skip the first 15 minutes because you kind of hit on it, right? You got a ton of injuries now, and I'm in the same boat. So I'm man, that's but as far as it goes, I'm a blue belt, right? So, I don't have enough technique to make up for a lot of that stuff. Right. I just don't have it yet. So it's interesting.
I think talking to your instructor and kind of having so I can't say that all instructors are going to have an open mindset. And I don't have an open mindset to a lot of other things that instructors I don't do open mats, and I don't like opposing gyms. So not that I don't like them as people. I don't like them as I don't do the community type shit. I don't do that. Hey, let's all go and have Brazilian steak and let's go. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And so it goes to the point where if somebody tells me I have an injury, I say, hey, go easy on that injury. It's yeah, man, this has been bothering me. I'm if they're injured, they should come in and take notes. And if they can't, some people have come to me and hey, I can only drill. Is that okay? I'm 100%. 100%. Yeah, I would rather you get better at jiu-jitsu than suck at it and come back and be worse. If you think you can drill, let's do that. Yeah, come in, do the drilling. If you can, it'd be nice if you stuck around and watched the training because that's part of being a team member. So if you cut out after 15 minutes of drilling and technique, it feels kind of but I really believe that if somebody's coming in and they're hey, I can't roll, but I would like to do the technique. I can't do the warm-ups because I'm injured right now, but can I do the technique and the drilling? It's of course. Why would I say no to that? I'm trying to make people good at jiu-jitsu. I'm not trying to run we're not going to war. If you can't carry, what I mean? I'm not if you're not physically fit, you're going to put me in danger. No, that's not how it goes. It goes, if you get better at jiu-jitsu when you're injured, that means you're going to come back when you're better and you're going to give everybody else a better role. You're going to bring everybody else up.
Yeah, our school's pretty good about that for the most part. I've definitely, I did, we were doing takedowns one day and we have zebra mats and my tendon right below my knee hit right on the corner of a zebra mat during a single leg. And I didn't realize it injured my knee until I was sitting at home doing something and I went down on my knees to work on the floor and I thought I had put a nail through my knee and I was oh crap. And I stopped and I looked down. I was oh, there's nothing there. That's weird. And so I put my knee back down on the ground. I was oh crap. What is going on here? You know what I mean?
That.
And it was and I couldn't do a lot of the warm-ups. I couldn't duck walk or shoot single legs. And now subconsciously because of that one injury, Now I try not to put that knee on the ground. It's 100% now, but now subconsciously I'm like, I can't put that knee on the ground, man, because I'm afraid I'm going to get that same injury again because it hurt. Man, did it hurt. I mean, it's no back surgery or shoulder surgery or, a bum neck, but it's like it changed my game for a little bit on how to work around it. You know what I mean?
And had you not trained during that injury, you couldn't play on your knees.
Not at all.
Sure. But you can play off the ground and you can work on making your close guard better. You can work on making your lapel attacks better. You can just the timing it takes to put in a rear naked choke. That's improvement stuff where like if your whole entire lower body is screwed up, if you can just do this and go back and forth and like hit the choke, it's like that should be easy because when I get to the neck, it should be done. Like as soon as I'm going into the back, the transition, and there's an open space for my hands to move, I should be honing in on that choke. It should be tightening up before I even land. Mm-hmm. And how am I going to get that if I'm not spending time drilling it? How am I going to? I mean, there's years to improve on that, but there's also quicker ways of chunking things into drills of like I show my kids how to do arm drag double legs because like wrestling's hard, judo's hard, arm drags are the easy way to get in on the hips. So we do a lot of like just entries. So we're always like, especially with the kids, we're doing a lot of entries because if they can get that entry down, we know we're going to get on the legs. So it's one of those things where it's like if you're not drilling those micro pieces, and it doesn't matter. Let's say the kid can't land on his hand. He's got like a whole rug, like he fell off his bike, which I always get. I get kids that like fell off their bike, or I get kids that that broke their arm because they were doing something crazy. They have a cast on. As long as they're doing something that's mimicking the movement and the motion, they're getting better. They're improving their timing. They're improving their. Not everything has to be perfect scenario of work. It's like people break their arms all the time and they're boxers. They're like, I want to put my membership on hold, and I'm like, I'll let you put your membership on hold, but that's probably the stupidest thing I ever heard. Because like you now have the ability to get much better with one hand. Like you are now forced to get better with that one hand. And it's like, that's like a blessing. Like, yeah, you don't get to spar. Yeah, you don't get to do all the pad work, but you get to work your jab or you get to work your right hand or your counter cross like every day. Like you would get so much better if you took that as a sign that, hey, I can't do this. So I'm going to focus on this instead. And it becomes a huge, crucial part of your repertoire. So I don't understand. I don't understand. I think those people are they're okay. I can't say like I hate them.
That's a good way to look at it, though. I have lots of friends that I try to talk into jiu-jitsu, but they're all my age, and they're like, man, I got too many injuries for that. And I'm like, who doesn't? I still go like
debilitating. You're walking around, you're taking a poop, picking up a pen off the floor.
One thing I like about actual rolling is I get to like guard those injuries, and like to me, it's easier to guard myself when I'm rolling than any other point in class.
Dude, me looking for a remote's gonna mess me up more than me drilling. Trust me.
Yep.
If I have to bend over and look for any more remotes, I'm gonna be like, there's a certain point of remote searching where I'm like, you know what? It's just not worth it. I'm not gonna be able to train. I'm not gonna be able to teach tomorrow. Like if I keep looking for this stupid remote.
So one thing that you got to do in your life was coach that amazing man behind you, Kimbo Slice. Small world. I went to the Washington State Fire Training Academy with D'Amico Rogers, who was on The Ultimate Fighter with Kimbo Slice. And so I got to talk to him a little bit about, and I would love to hear what you have to say about him. I'm sure it's nothing but great things. But he was like, dude, Kimbo Slice was probably one of the most humble, amazing people I have ever got to meet in my life. And he's like, he puts that face on for the TV or for the camera and stuff like that, but he is an amazing human being. What was it like being his coach?
He was one of the best people to coach because he had such humility. I mean, sometimes he was hard to wrangle in. Like he was hard to get into the gym sometimes. Like he has he likes to work out at like 3 a.m. So that's like he likes to do stuff super late. So I was a good coach in the fact that I don't mind, kind of curtailing, like as long as they're focused, and they want to get that work. But he was, I mean, it's sad that he passed away, because I knew that his plans were to continue doing jiu-jitsu past MMA. Like after MMA, he was like, man, I worked with him extensively because of Ken Shamrock. And so I was there for that purpose and that purpose alone, to make sure he didn't get submitted by Ken Shamrock. And his personality, the way he was, the openness he was, like how giving he was. His wife was an amazing person. He brought his kids to training, like, they would watch. This is just somebody who comes from a certain part of life, and I'm sure he has a certain, past or a place in that area, but he was somebody that could teach, like a CEO, he had a really kind heart, and he had a way of looking at things in life. And he deserved, I feel like, like a lot of people kind of like bash on him for his MMA skills, and he didn't have really time to develop his MMA skills like he should have, or like we wish he would have had that time. But he was, like really one of the people that, and if he had MMA, if he had gotten in there, like who can just jump into MMA and knock people out? Who can just jump in? Like he was that guy. He was the guy that like at like Toyo Tire does your tires, but all of a sudden he can also like bash your skull in. It's like, so it would have been really fun to see him at a younger age have gotten involved, and with the humility he had and the presence he had, he would have been probably one of the greatest fighters, I think, because if he touched you, you were going down. Like if he touched you, man, like if he touched you to the body, you were going down. So he just had that strength, and then he had the willingness to learn, and it's super nice guy, super family oriented, and all that thug stuff, I believe, is there because of there's a real person there that went through whatever whatever neighborhood in Miami he went through, but just an awesome person, never a judgmental guy, never none of that stuff. He was family. Like if you treated him like family, you were his family too. And it was really nice to teach somebody. Like I do a lot of, it's like when I coach fighters, some of them become family, and some of them are just my job. It's just my job to make them good. And they treat me like I'm an accessory, and sometimes I am. Like, sometimes like that's what I'm getting paid for, or that's what they're paying me for, and I'm an accessory to their success, and I don't need to be vaulted. But he was a big reason why I was able to open up my academy. His help was huge in the fact that I have a school right now, and so nothing but amazing things to say about him. And sad that he had to pass away, and hopefully his family, people know that this will keep going on for a long time, and people will always know who he was for the community. I think he did a lot.
Yeah, it was cool watching him on The Ultimate Fighter when he walked out and everything like that, because there was always the talks, from his YouTube videos, like, he should get an MMA, he should get an MMA, and when he walked out, I was like, oh my God, that's Kimbo Slice, that's so cool. Like he's on The Ultimate Fighter, man. So
nobody will know this, but I got Kimbo his first MMA fight.
Did you really?
Before I knew him, yeah. I fought for Cage Fury, And then they flew me out there to work as a matchmaker or an assistant to the matchmaker, and they were trying to get a main event. And the main event they got was so they're like, I'm like, hey, you gotta look at this guy, man. You gotta watch this guy on the internet. Kimbo Slice. Nobody really was watching him too much. He had like over 1 million views by that time. But I was like, if you can get this guy, everybody will tune in for the pay-per-view. You know, like this is a sellout. And then they got Ray Mercer to fight him in an exhibition match, which he choked out Ray Mercer within the first like 2 minutes. It was they paid Ray Mercer way too friggin' much money, man.
Ray Mercer, the old boxer?
Yeah, the boxer. So if you look up, there's a Ray Mercer Kimbo Slice fight.
Yeah, I remember Ray. I watched boxing growing up, so yeah, I remember Ray.
They should have never. They paid him like $200,000 or something ridiculous, and the whole thing went under because they overpaid somebody that we would have watched Kimbo beat up somebody's dad. It didn't even matter. Like you didn't have to go out there and get Ray Mercer, like you know. But they dropped a ton of Ray Mercer and and then Tank Abbott was there, and Tank Abbott was supposed to fight him next, and there was like a whole showdown with him and Tank Abbott, and then they ended up fighting later in Strike FC or Elite FC, whatever
Elite
it was.
FC. I just watched that fight this morning. Actually, that was I was like going through my Facebook feed, and I was like, oh. Tank, because it was a Tank Abbott, and then it was like relatable videos, and then the next video was him getting beat up by Kimbo Slice. I was like, "Wow, that's small world." So, what does it feel like walking into the cage or being ringside for like a professional MMA fight, like as a coach? Like, what does that feel like?
Okay, so there's a little bit of ego. Like you want to make sure that you don't look stupid walking out, just probably like everybody else. Like, you know, you're like, you got good posture, you know, you make sure that you're walking behind, you always make sure you're behind your fighter because you're never the show. You're not what people are coming to see. And you want to have confidence. So when you go out there, you want to have confidence because your fighters really like, you put out vibrations, right? So everybody's putting out vibrations, and your vibrations should be confidence and happiness that your fighter is going to get the chance to win and to prove that how great a fighter he is. So you walk out, you're confident, you give him a hug, you let him know he's a killer, and then you just get to work. It's all work from there. Like it's all stress. It's all like, you know, you're watching and you wish you could help them a little bit more. You wish that something was going on, like, you know, good or bad. You wish that you can make your fighter do what he needs to get done. But it's really just, it's up to him and his training from before. But
kind of like you wish you could just pause time and be like, I need you to put your hand here. And,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. And with time, so that's what it feels like. It's like I don't ever hang around for fights. I don't stay for fights. I don't stay after for the fights. Once our fights are done, I'm gone. Like you know, I still watch MMA fights on TV often, but not so often like I used to. This Colby Covington Tyrone Woodley fight I actually watched. I didn't watch the last whatever they put, like Michelle Watterson and somebody else. But you know, like I'll watch the Khabib Gaethje fight. I'll watch.
That's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, but they need to start putting out good fights. It's starting to become like boxing, where there's only one main event, and then they try to fill the card up with a bunch of people that I'm not interested in watching, or at least not interested in paying to watch.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yeah, it feels like a job, you know, and just like any other, I think that a lot of people don't realize, like, being backstage, being involved, talking, like positive talk, you know, making sure your fighter feels ready, making sure that, you know, like that you have the glove, like you're at work, like that fighter has one job to do is to warm up and go out there and win. And your job is to make him confident that entire time that he's going through an adrenaline dump, because you know it, because you fought before, you know that there's a lot of doubt in his mind. You know that he's not sure, you know that he's nervous, you know that he's he's about to get into a fight, and he's about to fight in front of. I don't think any fighter. Hopefully, if you're fighting and you're scared, don't fight. If you're fighting and you're scared to lose because people will look at you, then everybody knows about that. Everybody knows about letting people down and looking stupid, and that's probably the scariest thing in fighting. But it's like you're as a coach, your job is just to gel. You got to gel, and you got to make sure that you're the go between your fighter and the promotion, the fighter and the commission, the fighter and whoever's holding gloves for him. You and your fighter communicating and being like, "You're ready for this. We got you, man. All right, you feeling good? Okay, what do you need? Let's work on this. Let's look at some of this." And if your fighter's screwing up backstage, it's not the time to teach him. It's the time to like, all right, cool. If we go with that, you wouldn't realize how quickly game plans can dissipate when your fighter is having a mental block with something. You're like, okay, listen, man, let's keep it standing for right now. Let's push him against the cage. Let's not look for that takedown, because if they're making mistakes in the back and their adrenaline's going, then you already know what you're getting involved in. And that it takes a really long time for a guy to be polished.
Yeah, I remember when Justin Gaethje was fighting Tony Ferguson, and Eddie Bravo walked in there, and I think it was the 5th round or something like that. And it's funny because Eddie Bravo walks in there, he's like, I don't know, do an Imanari roll, like maybe do an Imanari roll, and like it was like Eddie Bravo was so, he talks about it later. He's like, he was so far out of his element. He's like, why are you sending his jiu-jitsu coach in there to tell him what to do in the 5th round? Like, if my game plan was to work, it would have been working a long time ago. He's like, he felt so out of there. And so that's why I wanted to get your point of view, because as you know, you were his jiu-jitsu coach and whatnot like that. Like, what there's got to be at some point you're like, man, like, what do I tell this dude? Like, he's just either he's executing everything perfectly, or like there's like some things he could work on, or things are just going terrible. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, but so the fact of it is that was not a bad thing to say.
Yeah.
An Imanari roll would have been better than getting stood up, than standing up and getting his head bashed in. That was an interesting take. That meant Eddie Bravo believed in Tony Ferguson being able to execute that possibly. Mm-hmm. And I think Tony Ferguson probably should have took that advice,
right?
Because everything else was not working. So when everything else is not working, and your coach says Imanari roll, and you may not be feeling it, but man, that coach says something. That coach is telling you to go for some special highlight move, because he doesn't have really any idea what else to do for you.
Right.
And it goes like, hey man, we're gonna need a heel hook. We're gonna need you to drop it on a heel hook, dude. It's like that's a person that wants to see you win, that doesn't know any other way, because either you don't have it, you can't take your shot, or you're not taking him down. Like, you're not going to take Justin Gaethje down after he punches you for 5 rounds. It's just not. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think a freak submission was a lot more likely than a come from behind, take down, pass the guard, mount, beat him up. Like, no, I think the Imanari roll was a damn good opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, he said after, he's like that was the only thing I could think of, man. Is like, let's just go for it. Just like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah,
like,
nothing to lose at that point.
Yeah, it's like you're getting beat up for 4 rounds, because that was a very interesting fight. But that's a good point of view. Is like, hey man, it's a Hail Mary. It's like last play of the game. Might as well go for it. Either you win it, or you're.
That's what I'd want to hear. I'd want to hear, like, look, you're going to lose unless you get it done right now. Like, just go for it.
Yeah, a lot of coaches are starting to be able to do that. I mean, coaches that are not fighters that aren't fragile, that can take real feedback real fast. It goes like, hey man, listen, like, honest to God, I can see us losing all the, like, I can't stand people that go with the like, you've won that round. I say, hey man, round could have gone either way. Once it gets down to the third, it's like, hey, we could be down 2 right now. We're going to need to pick this up. You're down 2. You could be split. We definitely lost the first. The second could have gone for us. Man, we need to make a statement right now. I need you to stand in front of them. No backing down. No moving back. We got to be forward. We got to at least control the cage. if you get the takedown, if you can push him against the cage, if we can get him down on his back, we can seal this deal. But man, I'm going to need this from you. And people should not, it's like people shouldn't sugarcoat fighters. Be like, I won that fight. Like, yeah, probably, yeah. Like,
maybe.
Man, I don't know. I'm not a judge, but that went both ways, man. It could have gone either way. But let's pretend we're down 2 right now. If we're down 2, we need a 10-8. I need you to knock him on his ass, man.
Question we like to always ask people is pertaining to being a white belt, right? And there's plenty of people out there that'll get like blue belt blues or whatever, and then obviously as a white belt, everyone will admit the first thing you want to do is get your blue belt, right? Like that is like the main goal. What would you tell the like a brand new white belt that's just like hunting for the blue belt, but you're like, you should probably listen to this more. Like, what would you?
And on that, what would you tell a white belt that may be into this a year and a half, 2 years, and he's still fighting for that blue belt? Like, I think that's another tough time for him right there. Like,
should I switch schools or should I just stick
quit?
With it?
Should I switch schools? Like, do I just suck so much? Like, what would you tell them?
They're possible that so everybody grows at different rates. So let's say it took a guy. It's like things are going on with your family. You're in you're in there 3 days a week. That's a pretty good amount, but I would say that it's about 2.5 years. 3 days a week is about 2.5 years, unless you're something really special. If you're there every single day and you're killing it. Also, are you a competition blue belt? Are you a competition white belt? Does that coach want to see? Are you competing? If you're competing, he may be holding you back because you're not ready for blue belt competition. If you're not showing up or you're not drilling the moves, or you're not doing the techniques, or you're more concerned with other things than the techniques being taught. Basically, I am your so if I'm coaching you and I'm your pit crew, now I tell you what to do, but I'm speaking Spanish and you speak English. We're not gonna gel at all, because things I need you to do, you can't do because you don't understand it, because you've been too busy with your Rafael Mendez website membership, drilling that stuff, and you don't know the simplest knee cut. You can't knee cut. And like, I need your knee up. I need an underhook. You don't underhook. You're just like, I think that, and if you look at it, it goes like, okay, it took me 2.5 years to get to my blue belt, or it took me 3. It doesn't mean it's going to take you 3 years to get to your purple. It doesn't mean it's going to take you 3 years to get to your brown. It just means that period of time of growth was a little bit harder for you than it was for other people. And at the same token, that you could hit your stride at purple. I've had guys that I've held at blue for they came over from another school that were coming in like 2 times a week and then gone for a week and a half. Then another 2 times, and they're like, what do I need to get better at? I'm like, I can't tell you because I don't see you enough. Like I haven't had the eyes on you to be able to tell you what your game actually is. I can't tell if it's just bad jiu-jitsu or if it's that you're working on something new or you need to focus on this. If I'm with you all the time, then I know that you're making this constant mistake, and I know that this is what you need to focus on. If you're coming in and you're showing absolute, if you're trying to be good, a coach should know. Like, it's not hard to see. Like, you start to take notice of, like, I have a white belt right now who I noticed 2 months ago, 3 months ago, that was doing well. And then I saw him again. He's been killing it. He's doing really, really well. I don't want that blue belt to go on him until he's just killing it. Like, that's the same thing. It's like when you put people at these belt levels, it goes, well, if they're competing, then they need to stay at the belt level that they're at until they tell you their goal. My goal is to be a world champion. Well, it's going to take a while unless you live jiu-jitsu and you're just naturally talented, skilled physically. Sometimes it is just the amount of time you put in the belt. And sometimes if you're an old dude and you're just looking for a hobby, don't walk around like a competition blue. Like this blue, all blue belts are not created equal. And just because I give a blue belt to somebody at this point in their life, and I give a blue belt to somebody at a different point in their life, they're not the same person. I grade these people to what their limitations or their expectations are. I can't say this 19-year-old kid who beats this 40-year-old guy most of the time. That 40-year-old guy who's not going to compete isn't a blue belt in 2 years, when this guy's been at 2.5 years, but he's a white belt with 4 stripes, and I'm holding him off because I know what competition blue belts look like. Like, you're 18, you're moving fast, you have speed, and you have time on your side. You have unlimited time, and oftentimes I hate saying this, but giving a purple belt to somebody is usually like the kiss of death. They stop competing immediately. Like, all of a sudden they're supposed to be good at jiu-jitsu, and so now they don't want to suck at it. And so, like, nobody at brown belt competes, nobody at purple belt competes anymore, and they're all just like this because they don't want to be looked at as stupid as a 35-year-old dude who lost a Naga. And it's like, well, I get it. I understand, man. It's not cool for Instagram and it's not cool for Facebook to be losing at martial arts, but it is what it is. Like, you can't expect, for you to be amazing at purple belt and all these new purple. So you got kids that are purple belts, you got guys who are 20-year purple belts, and you're losing. A lot of times, man, they end up quitting, or not quitting jiu-jitsu. They end up quitting competition. So it's kind of sad to see. And once they quit competition, they start really slowing down with their attendance. And that is what it is. It's what you see as a coach. So you're like, I know if I get this guy a purple belt, he's not going to compete anymore. I know he's going to start coming in less. And I know that it's like, do I want to do that to him right now? I'd like him to be around for a little bit longer. So sometimes you hold him off because something entirely that has nothing to do with his skill.
So basically, don't take it personal if you're not a blue belt. Just keep doing what you're doing, because it's not like it's going unnoticed, right?
Yeah, I have people I completely dislike. Like, nah, I can't say that. I have people that rub me the wrong way. My job is to coach them on their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My job is to then test them and see where their Jiu-Jitsu is and grade them as such. I don't care. Like, if you have a bad attitude, or if you talk, if you're immature on the mats, that's a whole other story, right? Like, those are things that will hold you back from being a brown belt. If you're an asshole, like, I can't put a brown belt on you, because that's a higher level belt, and that is something that is reserved for people that are influences. They influence jiu-jitsu. They influence everybody else's jiu-jitsu, and people will look to them as being. So I'll hold people back on that sometimes and say, like, man, you got to start helping people. You got to start, like, being a better person in the facility. Like, I'll tell them right away that. But I've given out plenty of belts to people that are not my best friends. That it's not like, no, they earned it, they deserved it, they are where they should be. And whether it was their age, whether it was their skill, whether it was whatever made my decision, I don't hold off. I don't, like, stop the belt process because I don't like this person as much as I like the other person. If they put the work in and they show up and they do what they're supposed to do, and me and him don't gel as a because that's not my job. My job is not to be friends with everybody.
Right.
Like there's a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu coaches, right? So I emphasize the Brazilian part of jiu-jitsu that are everybody's friend. That's my 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 friend. And they get away, like, they can't, like, all the students cannot wait for somebody for the guy to touch them on the shoulder and be like, it's good to see you. I'm not that guy, and I can't be that guy, but I'm not here to make small talk, or I'm not here to teach you jiu-jitsu. I'm here to make you better. And I'm also here if you need me to help you in other life situations, but I'm not qualified really. Like, I know that I'm everybody's life coach, but that's not my job. I take that on sometimes but because of the relationship we have as student and teacher. But my job is to make you good at jiu-jitsu, and when you get good enough, my job is also to award you with promotions if you've reached that level of adequacy.
That's a good way to look at it, man. So, but what was your beverage of the day? I completely forgot to ask you what your beverage of the day was at the beginning of it.
So it's 9:44 and I'm drinking caffeine. And all my students will know that.
Yeah.
Oh man, a bang. Whoo.
Yeah. Star Blast. Maybe I'm going to do some push-ups. I don't know. I'm going to try.
What's your favorite flavor of Bang?
I like the Miami Cola or
love it.
the cherry vanilla, the vanilla cherry Coke or whatever it is.
That's a good one too.
Those are the two good ones, man. I haven't seen those. I used to like Star Blast, but man, that's all they have now. I gotta find some place. Have you ever had the coffee ones, the protein?
Yes, they're actually not bad. I actually really enjoyed those.
I like those a lot.
I was surprised how much protein they have in them, actually. I think it's like 30 grams of protein, 20 grams of protein or something like that. I was like, God,
Right.
this ain't bad at all.
Yeah, it was good, yeah.
And it's not like that thick like syrup like a Starbucks one is. I'm like,
Right.
or the Monster one also.
Yeah.
So
No, I got to find them.
I wanted to ask one thing. I wanted to make sure we capture. Are you going to make an educational video on junk jitsu?
Junk Jitsu? Man, I want to so bad.
if it works, it works. That should be the title of it, right?
if you listen to the last Alan was telling us about your junk jitsu. So, we were curious.
That's the I got 5%. So if I get 5 out of 7, it's going to work.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah.
Man, so people like teaching junk jitsu is much easier because like in the technique, I'll be able to show like I need this, and this parts of that. But unfortunately, it's very hard to categorize into formats of DVD. So man, there's so much stuff I wanted to put on my DVDs that I haven't put on my DVDs because it didn't fit the formula or it didn't fit the format of progression. And like, there's so many mini DVDs I should come out with, like filling the hips. I could talk about filling the hip, like how to fill an opponent's hips and make him immobile for like on 30 different moves, but it's going to jump around all over the place. It's going to be passing. It's going to be deep half guard. It's like they're all the same. All these things are the same concept of limiting mobility to the hips and to where the knees are now like. So if I just move the knee, the person's going to turn their hip. But how am I going to go from passing guard and opening the hips to deep half guard and passing the hips? And I'm really good at as you can see, at talking myself into a corner. And I will just
You're doing great.
I will just wind up with like maybe when I get dementia, people will be like, I like it. I think this is best work. So like whenever I slip away, they're like, yeah, man, it was really weird, but he made some sense. It's like that's where I feel like junk jitsu might take me. It's like down the rabbit hole of like I have the whole Seonagi series, like where I only show the drop Seonagi one time, and then I explain how every move that I show in that technique and the techniques that follow are exactly like the drop Seonagi. And it's like I'm underneath my opponent. My opponent's arm is trapped to me. What does that mean? My opponent's going to come over top of me. So in any of these situations of Seonagis, so the deep half guard where you get the underhook and then you roll underneath your opponent, that's a drop Seonagi. If you like the Kimura, if I hit a Kimura and the guy starts trying to pass my guard and I push it in between his legs, guess what? I just made him Seonagi himself. There's all these like concepts of techniques that I get off on because they're mechanical weird stuff. I just don't know how the hell I'm going to put it into a DVD. I need somebody way more organized than me. That's what I'm getting to. So one day I'll find somebody who's as organized as they to organize my stupid thoughts.
You know what you should do is you should just like have a whiteboard behind you and you're just like writing stuff down and you're like, you following me? You follow me? And then you're like, I think we're going to do here and then here. Does that make sense? And they're like, no, not at all. It's like, okay, then show me.
Yeah. listen, man, I definitely need, that's why I'm working so hard. So I get an assistant one day and the assistant can
There
be
you
like,
go.
hey, here you go. Listen, I figured out how to make all that make sense. Great. Let's follow your model. And I'll do my best to stay on track.
Make a flow chart. That's what we need. We need more
Yeah.
flow charts in jiu-jitsu, man.
No. if I had a flow chart, listen, if I had a flow chart, people would just throw it away. It'd be like,
It looks like a bowl of spaghetti. I don't understand. Like,
yeah. Be like, so at the end, it's like, you following this? You tracking this right here? Yeah, this
Looks like Candyland. Like, no.
Oh,
we playing shoots and ladders? Like, what's going on here?
dude, basically jiu-jitsu is that. Anybody that tries to say that that jiu-jitsu is containable hasn't spent enough time trying to contain it. 'Cause I have. I've tried to contain it. I've tried to push it into movable facts, but there's some part of me that goes like, hey, but you're not showing this. It's like, yeah, just be quiet. You don't everything up. If I talk about that, then I have to talk about 50 other things.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like you can't even like talk about one of the counters, because if you talk about one of the counters as a responsible coach, you want to explain into the greater detail what that means for the athlete themselves. And it's like, well, that's going to be 6 more DVDs. So yeah, that's why I have like a 6-hour DVD now of like, so I split them into 3. There was supposed to be one, and all of a sudden it's 6 hours. It's 160 techniques. And I don't know what else, and I basically stopped doing it. I was just like, I'm done. I have to package this. I'm not making sense anymore. I don't know what I want to do with this anymore. And there's still stuff that I didn't get to put in my DVD that I don't know. Maybe I'm going to teach kids classes or something. I'm going off in like 30 other areas, and like I know Alan's never wants to teach a kids class, but I hope he comes back to Charleston so I can make him teach my kids classes.
There you go, man.
He's more organized than I am.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize it. He's a lot more organized than me, and I would love to see him act like a dinosaur and do T-Rex arm. Like, make him listen. There's you don't know jiu-jitsu until you've made a bunch of kids in class roar like a T-Rex.
There you go.
And then we turn to our side and we get our underhook. You know, it's like
This is gonna be so good on the video. I like it.
Yeah, it's gonna be great, man. This is gonna be great.
So people will never understand. Like, you're like, oh, I gotta be this and this. I think when you've mastered jiu-jitsu is when you're able to talk to children like you're a 5-year-old, or like a pirate at a birthday party. You know, I'm like walking in there trying to like put on a show so they remember what we're talking about.
That's right.
Like, man, that's what then my next thing before I do anything else is to make a kids DVD.
Oh, I like that. Both my daughters do it. Yeah. So that'll be good.
I want to make it so that they have fun. Like, so it's like skill building. They have fun, and I can teach kids from 3 years old and up, and to make it doable at home. So when they're doing it at home, they have a certain dummy that they can do it with, and they can get better at moving around on the dummy. They can get better at recognizing, understanding situations. I can do skill improvement. So like, you wouldn't understand how hard it is to teach a kid how to scissor their legs to their belly. Like, that's the quickest way up, right? So if somebody starts turning into you and you scissor your legs to your belly, you're going to get up first, right? But explaining that to children is very hard. So having them do particular drills or movements or repetition of moves without an opponent, like I do the side control escape to your knees underhook and knee tap, but I teach that without a kid, because a kid on top of another kid are like 2 jellyfish. They don't understand. Yeah, they're not. They just fall off each other. Like, one kid's like completely limp, and another kid's like falling off. So you can't have kids balance on other kids. You can only have them balance underneath their own structure. And so I think that's one of the things that I've figured out, at least as far as teaching it through Zoom, that I would look forward to teaching that in a DVD format and without burning myself out trying to impress 30 to 40-year-old men that are watching jiu-jitsu videos, because the kids, I don't know, man, the kids are it's so much, you get down to so much fun stuff. And the cool thing about kids jiu-jitsu is that all of them there are there for you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no any ulterior motives. There's no anything else going on. They're like, when you high five a kid, that kid really wants to give you a high five back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's not like that anywhere else in the world. Like, I could high five somebody and like, it's like, yeah, it's good to see you, brother. Hey, high five. But you high five a kid, they're like ready. They're gonna smack the crap out of your hand. They're so happy to give you a high five after they did a good job. So I definitely got to get more into my kids series, and I think I've kind of captured a way of making kids better at home, and definitely making kids that are not going to do jiu-jitsu for maybe a year or two into getting skills to do jiu-jitsu, so that they're adequate enough that when they hop into a class, they know how to learn, they know how to apply. And so that's my next goal. Or maybe the junk jitsu, who knows? Whatever gets me on, whatever pops into my brain and I start filming, I'll have to finish.
That's funny. Well, Malachy, it's a pleasure having you on, man.
Look how long we've talked, guys. I told you I will ramble. And it became dark over there.
Yeah.
It was nice to find a Judge Judy brother.
Yeah, there you go.
I talk about it all the time at work, and people look at me like I'm silly.
No, listen, I'm upset because I don't think Judge Judy, this is her last season.
Yep.
And I don't think she's going to do anymore because the COVID thing happened. And I don't know, man.
That's all right. We got like 10, 11 seasons of Judge Judy.
That's right.
I think I've watched them all. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
I've run out. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I was going to say, where can people find you, just in case they want to follow you?
So my name is Malachy Friedman. Misspell it as much as you want. Type in Black Label Jiu-Jitsu, Black Label Martial Arts. I have a Podia, so I have all my DVDs on digital. I'm on Jiu-Jitsu. I'm on BJJ Fanatics. I'm on Budo Videos. Budo Jake is awesome. I'll probably send my DVDs to him before I give it to anybody else because he's the man. And then, yeah, on Facebook, Instagram, you're going to see a whole bunch of like short segments of stuff that I teach. My meat and potatoes is stuff that I really am proud of is of my DVDs. And that's on Podia. If you want to buy it from me, I'll tell everybody, if you're going to buy my DVD, I'll give it to you cheaper from me. I have the cheapest. I have the cheapest versions. I can go as low as they can go. But other than that, man, just follow me on, talk to me, message me. I'm usually pretty accessible.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much once again. It was a great pleasure having you on. I can't talk right now. I got cotton mouth. I was a little nervous that I was like, oh no, this is going to be like the first, you don't see yourself as a big name, but to me and John and I, we definitely do. So we're very grateful that you gave us the time of day.
That's awesome.
So
I'm doing what you guys are doing. That's it. You know, like everybody's at different stages, and I'm still at a stage where I feel like I have a lot to talk about. I'm still coming up with ideas, and like anything else, man, it's a pleasure to be asked to do anything for anybody else's time. Podcasts, whether it's a 5 million viewers or 3 subscribers, whoever I'm reaching, I'm happy to talk to.
Appreciate that. So
Perfect.
If you guys want to follow us, we are, you can follow us on Instagram at Elbows Tight Pod. My Instagram's at Travis at ETP. John is JT Crash 79. We actually have our website under construction right now. Our YouTube page is up. We're going to have a couple videos of our podcast officially up on that. And then once John and I get back home, we're going to try to do some white belt instructional videos as blue belts to very basic things that people probably overlook when they first start jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean?
Maybe we'll do a road trip to South Carolina.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was a blast. And remember, no oil checks here.
I'm not doing it.
Thanks, guys.
Later.